Tonight on NewsWatch, a super typhoon strikes the Philippines with winds reaching 235 miles per hour. We'll take a look at the damage.
Plus, celebrating 95 years, the life and legacy of the Reverend Billy Graham.
And a look at one man's mission to save England from radical Islam at home. All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. Good evening. I'm Mark Martin.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. One of the most powerful typhoons in history is hitting the Philippines. Super Typhoon Haiyan made landfall this morning.
The monster storm has been moving quickly, causing severe damage and isolating several provinces of the island nation. Andrea Garrett has more in tonight's top story.
Local media are calling it the storm of the century. It is 300 miles wide with wind gusts up to 235 miles per hour, with sustained winds up to 195 miles per hour. Haiyan is more powerful than Hurricanes Katrina, Andrew, and Superstorm Sandy.
Along the path of this storm, you can expect complete devastation. It's going to act like a razor blade along the path of its eye.
Torrential rain set off landslides and knocked down structures along the path of the storm. Experts warn there aren't many buildings that can withstand the powerful winds. Nearly 720,000 people were forced to evacuate their homes. At least 3 people are confirmed dead, and that number is expected to rise. Power and communication lines are down in several areas, making it hard to assess the magnitude of the damage. One official told the Associated Press by phone, "When you're faced with such a scenario, you can only pray and pray and pray." CBN disaster relief teams were already on the ground in Bohol. They've been there bringing relief to victims of a massive earthquake that hit the island just last month. And now they're gearing up to assist the victims of this deadly storm.
Teams are already preparing, and of course we are going to distribute relief goods such as mats, blankets, and tents. Indeed. And also food and water.
Officials say the storm is moving so fast that flooding from heavy rains may not be as bad as originally thought. Haiyan is heading away from the Philippines back into the South China Sea. The typhoon is then expected to go toward Vietnam. And without much land mass to slow it down, forecasters say there could be more intense damage. Andrea Garrett, CBN News.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he utterly rejects a possible agreement between Western countries and Iran over its nuclear program. Netanyahu says Iran would get what it wants, primarily the easing of sanctions, and says Iran would not have to cut back on its nuclear enrichment capability at all.
So Iran got the deal of the century, and the international community got a bad deal. This is a very bad deal. And Israel utterly rejects it. And what I'm saying is shared by many, many in the regions, whether or not they express it publicly. Israel is not obliged by this agreement, and Israel will do everything it needs to do to defend itself and to defend the security of its people. Because they got everything and paid nothing.
Netanyahu has repeatedly threatened to attack Iran's nuclear program if necessary to prevent it from building nuclear weapons. Meanwhile, Secretary of State John Kerry emphasized today an agreement has not been reached between the West and Iran. Kerry made those comments in Geneva, where the talks over Iran's nuclear program are being held. Kerry says there are still some very important issues that need to be resolved before sanctions are reduced.
CBN senior editor John Waggy is in our Jerusalem bureau, and he joins us now with more. John, how would you describe the reaction of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, Mark, I cannot recall a time when a prime minister on his own soil with a U.S. Secretary of State, also on Israeli soil, has reacted with such anger and with such real defiance and forthrightness in terms of opposing U.S. policy. I can't remember a time when there was a more upset prime minister than Benjamin Netanyahu today.
John, if the U.S. and other nations reach an agreement with Iran, where does that leave Israel?
Well, it leaves Israel basically standing alone. I mean, we're talking about 5 of the greatest powers in the world, along with Germany, coming to this agreement, and all their secretaries of state and foreign ministers converging on Geneva. while Israel is blatantly and articulately opposed to it. And now there are some countries that Netanyahu has referred to without naming them, and Saudi Arabia is one of them, who's also very upset that the Western powers are caving into Iran. But it leaves Israel alone. And if you'll recall, just a little more than a month ago, Benjamin Netanyahu at the United Nations said Israel would stand alone and would defend itself if it had to. So that is pretty much, I think, why he's so angry, is because that's where Israel finds itself today, alone.
John, do you see any historical parallel in today's situation?
Well, you know, I've been reading recently the book by Winston Churchill and his write-up about the gathering storm, the period between World War I and World War II. And Churchill was trying to warn the world alone, essentially, about the problems and the real danger posed by Germany. And even though Iran looks weaker to the rest of the world and just a collection of mullahs and everything, Netanyahu, I think, believes that he has a Churchill role here, where he is warning that these nuclear weapons pose an existential threat, not only to Israel, but to other Western nations, and especially Europe, and interests that the United States holds dear. So, you know, there is a historical parallel. The appeasement sometimes results in war, and that can be a very unpleasant and dangerous thing, and I think that's Netanyahu's message now.
And being in Jerusalem right now, quickly, have you been able to gauge the reaction of people there to all of this?
Well, I think the general reaction, you know, this fell on a Sabbath, on the Shabbat, and so people are getting ready for that. But I think there's a fair amount of unity here. I don't think you're going to see a lot of protest from Netanyahu's political opposition, and I think the government itself is very united by this, and polls show that Israelis approve of the hard line that Netanyahu's been taking for months, if not years, against the Iranian government.
All right, CBN senior editor John Waggy, thanks for your insights, John.
Thanks, Mark.
23 U.S. senators are asking President Obama to engage in direct talks with Iran to free Pastor Saeed Abedini. The American pastor was recently transferred to Rajay Shah prison, known to be even more dangerous than Evin prison, where he was previously jailed. In a bipartisan letter, the senators call Saeed's transfer a potential death sentence. They're asking President Obama to speak out for his freedom. To learn more about how you can join the millions calling for Pastor Saeed's release, just visit our website, cbnnews.com.
With midterm elections around the corner, many GOP senators are supporting the strongest push to restrict abortion in a decade. On Thursday, Senator Lindsey Graham and other Republicans introduced a bill to ban abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. The premise of the bill is that a fetus feels pain after 20 weeks. It also follows the murder trial of Philadelphia late-term abortion doctor Kermit Gosnell. 11 of 14 GOP senators up for re-election stand behind the measure. A similar bill passed the House this summer.
President Obama has apologized to Americans forced off their health insurance plans by his health care overhaul. For years, he repeatedly said people who were satisfied with their coverage could keep it. But millions have already learned they're losing their insurance because their policies don't meet the requirements of the Affordable Care Act. In an interview with NBC News, the president said he did not do enough to ensure the law did not force people off their plans. He says his administration is working to close some of the holes and gaps in Obamacare.
I am sorry that they are finding themselves in this situation based on assurances they got from me.
The president's apology doesn't seem to be going far enough for Republicans. In a statement, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said, quote, "If the president is truly sorry for breaking his promises to the American people, he'll do more than just issue a half-hearted apology on TV."
Evangelist Billy Graham made a rare public appearance last night for his 95th birthday party. As John Jessup reports, family, friends, and many big names came together to celebrate a true American treasure, as Graham also delivered his final message to the nation.
800 people packed into the Grove Park Inn in Asheville, North Carolina to serenade and celebrate Billy Graham's 95 years, at times overcome with emotion.
God's given us peace as long as you want us. I'll be there.
The guests gathered to show their love and admiration for a man known as America's pastor. Among them, Christian music artist Michael W. Smith.
He's been a great friend for a long time, and we did many crusades, and I still visit him in Montreat, as much as I can, and he's in good spirits.
Ricky Skaggs.
He's the type person that would say God's never called us to be famous. God calls us to be faithful.
Former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin.
The truth that he tells reminds us that relationship with Jesus is the only answer.
And CBN's own Pat Robertson.
It's just a joy to celebrate his 95th birthday. It was a great tribute to a great man.
A preacher for 70 years, Graham's birthday celebration wasn't merely a party. It was also a night to do what he's done his whole life, minister the gospel.
The only way to the Father God, is through his Son, Jesus Christ.
Guests, along with millions watching the broadcast, witnessed Graham's latest sermon, The Cross, featuring powerful stories of conversion from young Christian artists like Lecrae and Lacey Sturm.
What's so amazing about his message is that it was the message he preached so many years ago, that it's the same message he's preaching at 95, and it's the message that saved my life.
For me, it's been going back and looking at his legacy and going back and watching some of the old broadcasts and seeing the power that was exuded when he spoke. And, that's been mind-blowing to me, the experience.
And just as he has all these years in stadiums and on TV, this sermon ends with a straightforward call for salvation.
I'm asking you to put your trust in Christ. I'm going to ask you to pray this prayer.
At 95, his life is still impacting millions, and his legacy is strong. John Jessup, CBN News.
Coming up, a new FDA push to get rid of trans fats. Why the popular ingredient could cause trouble.
It's hard trying to make ends meet. Stuck with no choices I don't like defeat. By my side is where you'll stay. It will be a brand new day. Checking up is easy to do. Here's to freedom for me and you. By my side, it's here you'll stay. It's a brand new world today.
In 2008, my husband Gary departed for heaven. I was still grieving. And then to find out I had cancer, I began praying, God, how do I do this? Where do I do this? Cancer Treatment Centers of America was the place. Dr. Neelam outlined a plan that would take care of my mind and my body, and she prayed with me.
For Bible-believing Christians, we're able to pray with them in a much deeper way as they begin to really rely upon their faith.
At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, we believe in the power of faith and prayer as indispensable allies in the fight against complex and advanced stage cancer.
I'm back in Telluride on the mountain skiing. I feel strong and healthy.
Advanced medicine and technology.
And I am a survivor.
The warm embrace of the Spirit and the power of prayer.
These are happy tears.
Please go to cancercenter.com/faith. Appointments available now. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
It's hard trying to make ends meet. Stuck with no choices I don't like defeat. By my side is where you'll stay. It will be a brand new day. Checking up is easy to do. Here's to freedom for me and you. By my side, it's here you'll stay. It's a brand new world today.
Strong momentum now exists to pass anti-trafficking legislation at the state level. Shared Hope International has just released the organization's third annual report card on the matter. This year, 48 states introduced close to 800 anti-trafficking bills. 29 states passed legislation and raised their grades, and Tennessee, Louisiana, and Washington received A's for their advancing legislation. The head of Shared Hope says states are waking up to the need to toughen penalties.
When we started, there were very few states that even made it a felony to buy commercial sex with a child. And now 48 states have it either a felony or a very serious criminal activity.
And the head of Shared Hope says states are definitely waking up to the penalties. She also warns that much still needs to be done. A recent survey shows only 18 out of 400 adults who bought sex with a child online went to prison.
The Food and Drug Administration has a new warning for Americans. Stay away from trans fats. The agency says it plans to eliminate trans fats from the American food supply. But as Lori Johnson reports, the processed food industry will likely fight the measure.
Packaged foods are loaded with trans fats because they're cheap, have a smooth texture, and prevent food from spoiling. Michael Moss investigated the processed food industry and says their huge profits are largely due to trans fats.
They got big by making products that are utterly irresistible to people, both in taste but also ultra convenient, that will sit on the shelf and be waiting for you when you're ready to eat them, and also incredibly low cost.
But trans fats are deadly, according to the medical community. Dr. Michael Aziz says because trans fats are artificially synthesized in a lab, our body doesn't know what to do with them.
Trans fats are really like plastic, and when we eat them, they incorporate in our cells, and the cells cannot communicate or talk to one another. In turn, hormones are disturbed. Weight gain follows, but more troubling, the risk for heart disease, cancer, stroke, infertility goes up.
Trans fats have even been linked to Alzheimer's disease and are the cornerstone of an inflammatory diet. Cardiologist Deepak Talreja tells his patients to scan a product's list of ingredients for trans fats, which are also called hydrogenated oils.
Trans fats are probably one of the most dangerous things we can consume that you see in everyday foods available to us that have no restrictions on them.
The Food and Drug Administration is giving food companies 2 months to try to prove trans fats are safe. If they can't, they'll be given a deadline to phase them out. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Up next, we'll show you where one man is receiving backlash for trying to fight against radical Islam.
Jim is 38, mortgage, married, 3 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. Jim can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $19 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll comparison shop the pick of insurance companies like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. Jim's wife, Deidre, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Welcome back. Britain is in a fight for its survival against radical Islam.
But those who are fighting to save Britain's future are not considered heroes. Instead, they're publicly ridiculed.
Dale Hurd brings us tonight's Focus Report from England.
Enough's enough. For years, he has been Britain's bad boy, a hero to many. The left in Britain labeled him a racist and a Nazi. He is Stephen Lennon, also known as Tommy Robinson, former head of the English Defence League. Tommy Robinson was a pseudonym he adopted in the early days of the group, when it was risky to be a member. I interviewed Lennon before he shocked Britain last month by announcing that he was leaving the English Defence League. The EDL began in the working-class town of Luton in 2009, when militant Muslims protested against British soldiers returning from Iraq. From there, it grew to become a self-styled defender of democracy against the spread of radical Islam in Britain. The EDL was able to turn out thousands of supporters at its demonstrations. Tough men from the working class.
You have some rough-looking guys at your demonstrations.
Of course, yeah. Working class communities in this country are rough communities. It was never going to be doctors and nurses that stand up to militant Islam on the streets of this country. When we first formed, the response against us was a very violent response by members of the Islamic community who come out, and images were sent across this country in national newspapers and in media of our supporters on the floor getting their heads kicked in. Now, when we went to our next demonstration, how many female 30-year-old school teachers are going to come out and oppose militant Islam? There's a certain sort of man that decides to dig in the trenches on the front line to fight for our Queen and our country in faraway fields against forces of Sharia in Afghanistan and Iraq. It's the same sort of man that's willing to protect here at home.
But after years of trying to keep extremists and Nazis out of the EDL, Lennon finally threw in the towel and left, as he explained on BBC's Newsnight programme.
I'd battled for 4 years to keep racists, Nazis, extremists out of this movement. I battled and dedicated my life to it, and they were invited back. And I felt let down by the people that in the organisation that were in positions, the same people that are calling me a traitor now, that were in positions invited Nazis to stand with them in the street. One of my offences is for knocking out one of these Nazis. In the early days of the English Defence League, purity comes with time in any organisation. When we formed, we're a nationalistic organisation. It attracted the wrong sorts as well as the right sorts. And it took us years of battling these wrong sorts and these Nazi elements to get rid of them, to let them know we stand with Israel, we fully support Israel.
The other charge against Lennon that he hears over and over is that he's a racist.
Please tell me how I'm a racist bigot. Please explain to me. Please explain. Couldn't explain. Because you are. No, I'm not a racist bigot because you tell me I'm a racist bigot. No. This left-wing and far-left view and agenda that anyone who has a different opinion to you is a racist or bigot is the reason that grooming gangs have been facilitated in this country. And people have not been allowed to say how they feel because you're a racist. Bang, bang, beat them back down. And then if you're a racist, you lose your job. My goddaughter is black. My niece is mixed race. So Englishness is not about the colour of your skin.
Lennon warns that British authorities are creating the conditions for civil war by both allowing the spread of radical Islam and restricting freedom of speech to criticize and protest against it.
So we have this democracy where we've actually had people, some of our members have been given 10-year ASBOs not to protest about Islam. Really? This is the land of democracy. If you're disgusted at what's happening in this country, what are you supposed to do? Because through democracy, when you're angry, you channel that frustration through peaceful protest. You take that right away from people, what are they going to do? They're going to be responsible for creating monsters. The last thing we want is a war in this country. But it's the inevitable outcome to the way the country's going. Now, the British people are not going to sit back and take much more.
Even though he has left the EDL, Lennon says it hasn't changed his opinion that radical Islam is still the biggest threat Britain faces.
Previous prime ministers, whether it be William Gladstone, said there'll never be peace on this earth so long as we have the Quran. It's an accursed and violent book. Then we have Winston Churchill, who said Islam and a man is like rabies in a dog. And then we have David Cameron, who says Islam's a religion of peace. What's changed? Because the book hasn't changed.
Now that the man known as Tommy Robinson has left the EDL, there are fears that it could splinter and become what it was always accused of being, a violent, dangerous collection of neo-Nazis and white supremacists. Lennon says he's chosen a new strategy of working with moderate Muslims in the hope that more people will listen to his message.
But even though he's left the English Defense League, Stephen Lennon still lives every day under a death threat.
Am I scared of the death threats? People want to kill me and attacks against me, etc. Yeah, I am. Of course I am. I wouldn't be human if I wasn't. But I am terrified for the entire next generation of this country and for this country's history, its culture, its identity. It's all under attack.
Dale Hurd, CBN News in Luton, England.
Up next, meet the youngest person to be elected to office in New Jersey.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need, just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Well, many young people are disinterested in politics. That's just one reason an 18-year-old from New Jersey is standing out.
Yeah, he's only been eligible to vote for 2 months, but he was recently elected to his township's Board of Education. Chase Harrison is the youngest elected official in the state and did a lot of his campaigning through social media.
I thought I really could make a difference in the lives of students in Millburn who are incredibly stressed, really overburdened, and needed a voice on the Board of Education to advocate for them.
He was very engaged from a very young age.
Our students are really the pride of this community, and it's time that we looked to them to solve a lot of the problems that they are having themselves, and they can do it. We should never underestimate them.
The high school senior doesn't have plans of slowing down. Fluent in Spanish, he wants to eventually go to Latin America as an international relations representative. Wow, that is one driven young person.
It is. I mean, to be 18 and already in elected office.
Can only vote for 2 months and he already is in office.
He's on his way. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of NewsWatch.
Yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.
Good night.